Hi, Bob here. This little capsule addresses two questions about questions in the online companion, and both of them are tough for sure, but right now on July 30th, 2013, they seem tougher than they are because we're not yet there in our studies. We start with the one on page 91. This one has come in sometime before we discuss parallel reasoning in class, let alone flawed parallel reasoning. So even with a third stab at commentary, which I will provide, it still may not ring right until a few weeks from now. That said, let's look at the conclusions, which I've highlighted here on the screen. All six arguments, the one in the stimulus, it's in red there, and the choices have a conclusion in the same form. Do you see it? All of them say X, some term, can't be defined as thus and such. Do you see that? You can't define perception as a relationship between yada yada. You can't define art, choice A, as this construct. You can't define liberty, preparation, happiness, physics, etc. Each one's conclusion denies a definition. We okay so far? Now, in parallel logic terms, this means that we can ignore all six conclusions. You see, the definition of parallel is when two arguments reach the same kind of conclusion by using the same kind of evidence. But all six arguments, do you see, reach the same kind of conclusion. So we can ignore the conclusions, and all we have to do is compare the evidence to find the two and only two, the stimulus and the right answer, which are the same in nature, in kind. Again, this is going to make more sense after we examine much easier parallel reasoning questions down the road. Okay, so let's isolate then the evidence in the six arguments, compare the evidence, and you can see that's rendered easier because all the evidence is indicated by the word for. Now, the stimulus's evidence, highlighted in red, and listen as I say this, is that there are many objects that can't be perceived, which we hold beliefs in. See that? Now, choice A's evidence is that there are many artifacts, see that can't be called art, but which we have reactions to. All of that is paraphrased, but listen to how I've lined up the terms in the original. Objects that can't be perceived, which we hold beliefs in. Choice A. Artifacts that can't be called art, which we have reactions to. That elegance in parallel form may tell you why choice A is correct. It's a form all of the other choices deviate from. All four, in fact, go off in the same way. Choice B argues that no matter what, something will occur. C says, no matter what, some problems can't be solved. D, no matter what, two things can't be compared. And E says, no matter what, ultimate principles can't be understood. That sense of no matter what is not present in the stimulus, which simply says there exist many examples of thus and such, as does choice A. Choice E, by the way, is even easier to throw out because E presents two pieces of evidence. It says for X and Y, and that's way off. Hey, you want it even simpler? Okay. The stimulus and A are similar in that each one comes up with a lot of exceptions to a definition. The stimulus says there are many objects. Choice A says we often have. None of the other choices has evidence in that form. QED, it's choice A. Now, what about question 11 on page 99? I'm sorry, question 13. This is interesting because it's another argument that tries to point out an exception, and that goes wrong, logically speaking. The conclusion is, signaled by hence, that the anthropologist's claim is false. Well, we're going to have to understand what that claim is, and we get it up top. Look at the grammar in that sentence, sentence 1. Could not have done X if they hadn't done Y. Translated, that means Y, the ability to cope with many different natural environments, was necessary for human species to make it through those tough prehistoric times. You got that? That is the anthropologist's claim. Our human species needed that ability to cope with all sorts of different environments in order to survive. Now, many of you, even though it's still early in our training, may have realized that flaws occur when an arguer mistakes sufficiency for necessity and vice versa. This is one of those times. Our author points to what he thinks an exception is. He points to a human species that went extinct even though it possessed the ability to cope with many natural environments. But that would only be an exception if the anthropologists were arguing that human adaptability was sufficient, enough, the reason for survival, and they're not. They're just saying that for survival, human species needed that versatility. To point to one species, Australopithecus afarensis, that had that versatility and went bye-bye anyway, is sad for that species, but not, repeat, not an exception. Afarensis must have lacked something else needed to hang on. And I wanted you to see correct choice A because that's really the issue here. I think that the explanation online makes this point loud, but maybe not clear, in the sense of loud and clear, because it's fairly abstract. Let me try and take it apart. The condition choice A speaks of is that versatility in environments. Saying that that versatility was required, necessary for the given result of survival, is different from and cannot be confused with saying that that versatility, that's the condition once again, was sufficient for survival in the case of afarensis. Now, which admittedly it was not, but sufficiency is not what the anthropologists were claiming. I hope you see it now. Bye.